Welcome to Digital Dilemmas, your go-to podcast for dissecting the latest developments in AI, social media, and other cutting-edge tech subjects, presented in a way that's not just informative, but also relatable and entertaining. I'm John Murphy, your host, and every week I'm joined by none other than Burr Clevenger, undoubtedly the brains of the operation and way funnier than I can ever hope to be. So welcome to our inaugural episode. Now, you might be thinking, another podcast? Really? Well, stick around because we're here to break the mold. Why are we doing this? With over 40 years in the tech space, my focus has always been on emerging tech. Lately, I've delved into social media business, social listening analytics, AI. What I've observed is a growing technical complexity in society, leaving many feeling overwhelmed. Our mission? To bridge the gap, make it entertaining and easy to digest. On this show, my goal is to demystify these tech issues, make them accessible to everyone, and dare I say, make it enjoyable. Society is evolving, and it's time for everyone to feel empowered, not just us tech nerds. Throughout our journey, we'll be joined by fascinating guests, leaders in their fields who bring both expertise and entertainment to the table. So buckle up for the insightful discussions and a good dose of fun. Today, we're delving into the cutting-edge realms of gaming ads and AI in the workplace. Joined by the brilliant mind behind innovative strategies and digital transformations, he's not just breaking the mold, he's setting a new standard. Join us today as we welcome our guest, Andrew Katz, former ad exec at Twitter and current ad executive at Admazing, exploring the latest in gaming ad innovations and the AI revolution reshaping our workspaces. Digital Dilemmas is a Link Media original podcast. Why are we here? Why do we have this podcast? What are we doing? Well, as I've traveled around, there's been a lot of questions asked of me, and I'll give you my background in a minute, regarding AI and any other emerging technologies that are causing issues in society right now. It could be social media, it could be neurotechnology, it could be data privacy. Right now, the shiny object is AI. Everybody has questions. A lot of people throwing their hands up in the air, afraid of it, want to ban it, don't use it. So I thought it'd be a great idea if we had a podcast where we get the message out to people, clean it up, make it easy to understand, easy to digest in a consumable way, and also have fun. We have a lot of sports talk shows, we have news talk shows, but there aren't a lot of, at least from my understanding, a tech show that's fun and easy to understand. So we're trying to talk to moms and dads, students, business people, to try to break down these emerging technologies and figure out how to use them in a safe, humane, and ethical way. So that's really the purpose of the show. That's why we're here. My background is I've been doing IT for about 40 years, and I've always been dealing with the emerging technology space. It's something that I have a passion about, so I thought I'd bring that to the consumer world. Burr is the smarter one of the show here. She's smarter, she's funnier, so she's going to add a lot that I can't add.
All of that's true.
Yeah, no. So for people who are getting to know us, we live in Connecticut. We have a dog that may pop in every now and then.
All right, wrap it up.
All right.
Just a guest.
See, that's why you're here. All right, so our first guest, a lot of the things, well, before we get to our first guest, let's talk for a minute about AI. I think the topic of the day is, how do we use it in the workplace? How do we use it in the classroom? So I'm going to talk to our first guest about that, and we'll go back and forth. So our first guest is Andrew Katz. I've known Andrew for about, 10 years, Andrew?
I think a little more than that now, so it's crazy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Oh my gosh.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So we met way back when I was working in the health insurance space, and way back when social media and social media analytics was brand new.
Yeah.
Andrew,
it's come up quite a way since then, huh, John?
Well, that's what we were talking about. We were catching up the other day. When we were doing social media and social media analytics, it was all brand new. Now it's mainstream. And it has come a long way, a very long way. When we were working before, companies, some brands weren't even getting into social media. They were afraid to. They thought it was just for kids. But you and your business at the time kind of showed the way that it's not, and now it's mainstream. So Andrew, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Where do you work now? What do you do?
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me, especially on the inaugural episode. Very excited for this and very excited to be a part of it. But yeah, as John mentioned, we met back when I was working in social media analytics. I was in the startup world for quite a while, working for software companies. I spent almost 6 years working at Twitter. And then currently I work at a company called Admazing. We help brands advertise within mobile games, understanding that there's an audience there that, I mean, people have been playing mobile games for many, many years, but brands haven't found a really effective and efficient way to be able to advertise to them within that environment, and knowing that these people are single tasking, they're not scrolling a feed, they're immersed. It's a perfect time to be a part of that equation. So Amazing helps those advertisers connect with those hard to reach audiences in that moment. So it's been really great. We work with some really big brands, and it's fun to continue to see this advertising landscape continue to grow because, I spent so long in social media. I thought gaming was esports and, console gaming and, maybe Twitch, but like this mobile gaming space is enormous. And I think it's really an interesting place to be right now. And the response in the market has been really strong.
I can imagine. We have two teenage boys who are, as you can imagine, very into mobile gaming. So I can see how that's a very fruitful prospect.
Yeah, I mean, the fun part is because we all have these devices, whether it be a phone or a tablet. I mean, everyone plays, from my kids who play Sonic when they go visit my parents and behind my back, so I don't know that it's happening, to my dad who plays chess. My wife has been playing Candy Crush for about a decade. These are games that are out there. I remember playing Words with Friends when it first came out. All these type of games that are out there, and then I just think there's just much more of a progression to find new opportunities there. Netflix and Microsoft and other companies have put a lot of stuff in the press about how interested they are in getting involved in the space because they know the eyeballs are there, the opportunities there, and the advertising dollars will flow as well.
Andrew, do you guys use AI in the office or on any of your tools?
We do, yeah. We do use AI. We our co-founders are very big fans of GPT, first of all, but then also, like, when we're talking about AI itself, we're definitely using it to make sure that we're optimizing our targeting, we're optimizing our process, we're building out our proprietary algorithm to work in a much more efficient way. So it's something that our technology team has taken much more of a proactive interest in. And I think it's something where we're going to continue to see how that develops as we go forward.
So as someone who's been in this business a while and in a leadership role, and you hear people or neighbors or at the grocery store or at the ball field afraid of AI, what do you say to them? What do you immediately think?
Well, it's funny because I feel like there's, two sides of every new thing that comes out, right? There's the over exuberance where everyone has to get a part of it, whether that be cryptocurrencies, NFTs, whatever, big fad there is out there, everyone has to be a part of that. And then there's also the people who are just scared of it. They don't know it, they don't understand it. They hear things like artificial intelligence and they have conjure up thoughts of what it could be. And I think it's where it's really important for a lot of people to take a step back, have really strong education about what it means, what it's being used for, what are the pitfalls and the downsides, but what are the opportunities that can come with it too. And also, there's a lot that gets sold in fantastic headlines. Oh no, it's going to take away all these jobs. Oh no, it's going to steal all of this IP from artists and creators. But I think what needs to happen is just much more of a leveling out, and I think that's what will hopefully will happen this year, where there'll be more of an understanding of what it is, what the opportunity is, and where both brands and individuals can be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think I know I'm older than you, but we're both old enough to have been through iterations similar to this in the past, where social media came out, or the internet came out, or Google searching, or all these various technologies. A lot of the same emotion was going on in businesses and in the public as well. Is that a similar story that if you look back, you see these same types of emotions and processes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of brands that probably regretted some of those decisions in the past. I mean, how many brands went head on into NFTs and, spent millions of dollars on launches and now probably look back on that and said, "Ugh, maybe I should have tiptoed in on it a little bit." I think there's this, funny thing where you don't want to be first and you don't want to be last, but like someplace in the middle is okay. And I think just doing a lot more due diligence is important. I think the interesting part about AI is that while I think that's definitely the case, and I think everyone has to slap it onto their website and have it in every pitch and talk about, what they're doing with it, I think that there are a lot more business use case applications that people are glomming onto. And I think the smart companies that are thinking about it are doing it in ways that will have better long-term effects. But again, what we see is that sometimes this is a quick shifting focus, right? We saw, let's say, from Meta, Mark Zuckerberg was, guns ablazing about the metaverse. And that was very big for a while. And then all of a sudden that just shifted. He came out, he said AI is the new thing we're going to be focusing on. So I think, again, focusing on it's great. What are you focusing on? How is that going to benefit the company and the consumers? And where does it go from there, I think, are the real questions. And then, as we've seen in the news, there's going to be a lot of questions about legislation or other rules around how this is going to work, because there are a lot of tripwires out there that people don't think about.
Do you hear a lot of conversation either in the office or in your peers when you're in your travels or in your conferences where people are concerned about any legal risks, ethical risks, and they're trying to get their head around that in the office place, or are they just going gung ho at first? Or what's your read on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I'm going to be one of those people who is going to say, I am not an expert on it. So that's a very rare
Right.
thing to come out there. Everyone loves the hot take, and to be the expert on every topic. I'm not an expert on it. So I don't come across it as much. But I was at Advertising Week in New York. And, again, it was one of those topics where it hit a lot of the stages and people had to have an opinion, had to talk about it. And I think there is a lot of conversations about the overall process, the ethics around it, everything like that. So I think the conversations are happening at companies, and I think it's great to have them in forums like this as well, because I think there's more knowledge that needs to happen in the public of what really are the issues here, because there's a lot of like the scary boogeyman stuff that comes out a lot, especially when we have technology. I saw when I worked in social media, and I think what needs to happen is a calming down and just more information from trusted sources to be able to understand what's going on.
Yeah. So you're not in the camp of there's a lot of you're not afraid. You've learned from the various emerging technologies of the past, and you're approaching this with a common sense approach.
Yeah, I think, and again,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that brands need to do that. I also think, again, involving your legal teams, involving people who are experts in the field to really think through it is good, because I think the more companies that have been just jumping you know, like diving in, they're the ones that are going to have the most trouble moving forward, because all the things they didn't think about when they wanted to be the first to market or do it first are going to come back to bite them later on.
Gotcha. All right. There's a couple things I want to talk to you about before I let you go today. One, I know you used to be an executive at Twitter. Um,
Executive may be a little bit of a strong word in there.
um, are you still on Twitter, or now it's called X? Are you still on the platform?
I am, yes.
You are. From what I don't want to get you in trouble, but from what you can see, has the gutting of so many talented people really hurt their ability to weed out misinformation, or what can you share with us about just in general? How
I
do you
think
feel about that?
I think that I like to talk about it in general for social media because I think that's a much more important topic. I think that
Right.
it's a really tough topic for social media because I think there always has to be an arbiter of what's actually the truth. There has to be a way to enforce it. And it's really hard because the bad actors will always be quicker than the platforms. It's where AI can actually be someplace that could probably be helpful for a lot of platforms. And we've seen, um, some of the platforms really turn to that to help with a lot of information about deep fakes or what's called like CSAM issues, like more of like child exploitation. So I think like
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Are you talking about using AI to identify misinformation and disinformation?
yeah, I think that could be one of the use cases that I could see is like having a little bit more of like, hey, these are the facts out there, and these are the ways that we can identify, when maybe some of the stuff isn't exactly following those rules. But again, I think your point is great, right? Like, what is misinformation? What's disinformation? Is this because people are not knowledgeable, or are they bad actors? Like, there's a lot of factors that go involved here, and I think that's where like, you know, there are people who have a pay grade well above mine who make these decisions, and I don't envy what they go through, but it's tough because there's a lot of different factors here, and as we go into an election year here, there's going to be a lot of tough questions asked of all of these platforms about what they'll allow, what they won't allow, and um, I think the answers are going to upset everyone, regardless of what they are. So I think like that's one of the things where we're going to have to sort of wait and see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I know that we're doing a lot of study and research in that at my job with students. Everybody's talking about that, especially as we head into an election year. And I don't envy the social platforms that have to figure this out. It's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah. I mean, and on that note too, I think one of the other things is, we talk about everyone having to be first, right? One of the things that's tough is because everyone needs to be first, it's also the case with like hot takes, right? Or like news information. Like the alerts come out and sometimes I have to retract them, or sometimes I have to change them, or sometimes it's like not the nuance. And I think the reliance on speed sometimes leads to bad things happening there. And I think that's one of the things that can be a little disruptive as we head into this type of season, because I think especially as things happen so rapidly in this world, we need to have ability to take a step back and be like, okay, what actually happened? What's actually the truth? Then be able to get that information out to people, which I think is key. And I think it's not just for big news items, or politics, stuff like that. It's also for stuff like trying to figure out the latest hot take. The latest hot take this week on everyone had a hot take this week on Solo Stove, right? They did a big viral campaign with Snoop Dogg. And then 2 months later, their CEO left. And I think there was a lot of hot takes of like, oh, like this shows you that, you need to be able to drive sales. And someone's like, well, no, it's successful because it drove a lot of buzz. And people are like, well, it launched at the wrong time of year. And you know what? None of us know, right? And I think if you take a step back, none of us know because we have no clue what their goals were here. We have no clue what they're being measured against. John, if we go back to one of our first conversations, when social media, organic social media was out, everyone's like, I'm doing great. I got 1,000 likes on this post. And I was like, great. Compared to what? Like, what was your goal? Like, what does that compare to? And I think that's where, when I was working at Shareablee in that industry, it was very powerful to be able to give people information. But I think now too, like, we don't know what happened in that room. Maybe the goal was like, hey, we want to get as much buzz as possible. Or maybe the goal was, hey, we need to drive sales. And that was something where that was probably the wrong tactic to go out on. But I think it's also one of those things too where we don't know, and I think everyone wants to jump in and give their opinion in the topic. And I think again, like there are definitely some successes from it. It got a lot of buzz, but also like it was 2 months ago. And I think that instant gratification everyone wants of like, hey, I need instant results for everything is just not going to happen with every campaign, every product, everything going on out there. So that's definitely one of those examples.
That's a great example. All right. Switching gears a little bit, Andrew.
Yes.
Streaming shows.
Yes.
All right. Amber and I constantly, we go through this process where we watch a show or two, and then we get to the end of it and we say, what do we watch next? What's the best show on streaming? So help us, help our audience. What are you watching? What are you seeing? What are you guys doing at home when it comes to streaming selection?
Yeah, so I mean, I have like a whole list of shows. Like I watch on my own, and then I watch with my wife.
That's what we need, honestly.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It is a
So
good
the one
idea.
one I just finished on my own was what's called The Old Man on FX, but I watched it on Hulu, which was really excellent.
I tried to get us to watch that.
You
Hey,
did?
John, maybe a new show for you. I don't want to get involved in that, but hey, recommendation coming from this side. The best thing I watched last year on streaming was Severance on Apple TV.
Okay.
Was really excellent. Highly recommend that.
That's the guy from Works and Rec, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. It was really well done. It was very trippy.
I've heard good things
It's very
about
heavy,
it,
but it's very good.
Okay, we have Severance, we have Old Man.
My wife and I, we just finished the last season of Welcome to Wrexham, which I really loved on Hulu. If you want a feel good show, if you want something that like you can really watch and feel good after, which is not always what you watch on TV.
That's the thing. One of the shows we watched together was Yellowstone, which we love, but I was like, I'm tired of being put through the emotional ringer with every episode. So that's where something like Welcome to Wrexham comes in handy.
Yeah. Currently, we're finishing up the last season of The Crown, and then the next thing on our list is the new season of True Detective, because I was such a big fan of the first season, and I've heard this one's good, so I need to get back into it.
So how out of touch am I? I've never heard of any of these shows except Yellowstone and Wrexham.
Don't pay attention.
It's pathetic. I keep thinking I'm with it, Andrew. I'm on top of all these shows, and I have a conversation with you or my wife, and I'm like, yeah, I never heard of any of them. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues out there is there's so much content, right? I think we went from like the golden age of content to the golden age of content to the golden age. I mean, now it's just too much. Like it is the landscape is so great where like a show like one of my favorite shows ever is Better Call Saul won 0 Emmys ever, like 0. Like got shut out of the Emmys, but it was an incredible show. Probably top 5 for me ever. And I think it's one of those things where there's just so much good TV out there. It's really hard to compete. So that's why my list keeps on getting longer instead of shorter, because I end up putting more stuff on than crossing it off. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's not a bad problem to have. It's not like the time where like oh, there's nothing on TV. Like there's always something on. So it's pretty great. But I think there needs to be some sort of consolidation here on all of these different streaming platforms.
I was just going to ask you that. Don't you think at some point these various platforms are going to start merging?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think so. I think we've seen it now. Disney and Hulu are doing it. But I feel like there's just at some point there's just not going to be enough dollars to go around. And like again, part of the idea with streaming was to solve the cable factor of like
we cut the cord and while we spend $7 for 25 different channels, and it ends up being the same price.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like literally, like sometimes I'm just like, okay, like what's on Peacock? What's on Paramount? What's on Amazon Prime? It's like, Netflix. And again, like the good part is that there's great content on all this stuff. It's just like, okay, then it's just trying to figure out what to watch. So it's tough.
And it's tough. A lot of my friends of a certain age group, we grew up with 3 channels. You had to watch, ABC, NBC, CBS. That was it. Everything was on 3 channels. They can't get their heads around 300 different services and all these shows. It's so difficult. Anyway.
Yeah, actually, one of the funny developments that's happened is that I think my kids like watching sports with me. Not because, and I think they enjoy the sports part, but their favorite part about watching sports is there's commercials, because everything they watch otherwise is on streaming and they don't see any commercials. So they are just fascinated by commercials. Whereas
they like commercials.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah, they're like, this is great. Like this is You know, and like they try and guess, like, is it a commercial for a car? Is it a commercial for, Apple? Like whatever it is, it's just very funny to see them like go through this process, but they love it. Like they're like, let me know when the next commercial is on.
That's really funny. We have a couple of commercials that we laugh at that we see regularly. Before I let you go, when you talked about your kids, it reminded me of something I wanted you to share with our audience. So your wife is from the Boston area, am I right?
That's correct, yes.
And you're from Metro New York, right?
Correct.
And if I recall, when the kids were born, you had a conversation about how you were going to slice and dice, trying to brainwash the kids for which teams in Boston and New York to root for by buying gear, etc. First of all, can you share with us the original philosophy and goal, and then update me, since it's been a couple of years? How's it working? Is it working, or did it fall apart?
Well, the idea was, we were both very big sports fans, but liked our regional sports team. So we had come to an agreement before we had kids that it would be Yankees, Rangers, Celtics, Patriots.
Gotcha.
And again, we got gear to sort of be able to support that. Now, it's moved a little bit where like my son got very into the Knicks all of a sudden. So that's a new obsession. So that's like one of those places. But I feel like that rivalry is not as great. They still like are getting into football, but I'll be, with a new regime in there, I think I can be okay with them being Patriots fans. But yeah, it's tough. Again, like when you live in a certain area, you tend to root for those teams, but they have some split allegiances here.
I'll tell you, and at one point you lose control. My two boys, I'm from New York, and my ex-husband's from Philadelphia, and our kids, one's a Seattle fan and the other one's a Green Bay fan.
Yeah, unbelievable.
How did this happen?
Yeah. As long as I think my wife and I agree. As long as they don't become Mets fans, that's the only. No.
or
I just don't want to give them that pain. I don't want them to feel that heartbreak.
Right. If don't you feel, Andrew, if somebody becomes one of your kids a Jets or a Jets fan, it's like you're dooming them to like 50 years of torture.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like as I'll probably talk to my kids about like what they're going to major in college, or like whatever they're going to do. Like I think what sports team they're going to root for is a conversation that like we'll have together as a group, and I'll give my guidance there because I've dealt with enough heartbreak on like the sports side to know like that feeling. So I feel like just keep them away from that. There's certain franchises that maybe I've dwelled in it a little too long.
Yeah, I've been through that myself. I've actually become, and we won't go into it and bore the audience, I've become a free agent fan. I've decided to identify myself with players and become a free agent that the teams have to woo me as to why I would be their fan.
I like that. I think it's very like I feel like Gen Z of you. I feel like they're much more loyal to the players than the team.
Yeah, I found myself lately rooting for players or a manager or a coach, the person.
Yeah. And
I didn't care what laundry they were wearing. I kind of rooted for them. So I kind of found myself moving in that direction the last few years.
Yeah, and listen, like it's playing out in so many ways. Like look at the growth among women viewers for football with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Like it's great to see.
What'd you say?
I said you're welcome to football.
Yeah.
From the ladies.
Yeah. But listen, it's awesome because again, I feel like, and there's like a player base, but then they got very into the Jason Kelce and what was going on with him and his retirement. And again, I feel like the players and the personalities and stuff like that, the stuff, John, like we were talking about many years ago for social media about the opportunity they had there. I feel like now it's really coming into play in a very interesting way. And listen, for them, it's great. It's leading to lucrative endorsement deals, and it's helping to build the sports. And I feel like it's a win-win all around.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, thank you for being our premiere episode, first guest ever. We hope to have you on many times, be one of our insiders as we get better at this each week. And as always, you've been a blast. And it's always great to hear from you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to tune in for the rest of your episodes as well. So excited for these topics, and thanks for doing this.
All right, Digital Dilemma fans, That wraps up another episode. Thanks for tuning in and navigating our tech world with us.
Please rate us and leave a review. And if you enjoyed it, tune in next time. We'd also love it if you would send us any questions or suggest guests via email. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Digital Dilemmas is a Link Media original podcast.